Now, the next two speakers are going to tell us exactly how we can go out, collaborate, innovate, and lead that charge with some practical tips that you can use in the classroom right away. We'll be hearing from Lisa Bodell. She is the CEO of FutureThink. She works with tens of thousands of people a year to help them innovate, and she'll give us 3 practical tips to start innovating in our organizations or schools. We'll also hear from Michael Fullen. He's recognized worldwide for his body of work on education reform. He advises school systems all over the globe, and he encourages us to support change leaders who are really making a difference, and also to stop boring the students. He has some highlights on that. They'll join us live for Q&A after their talks, and be sure to submit those questions. Keep them coming in. They've been great.
I'm here today to talk about how to create more space for change and innovation in your organization. Now, we all know that change can be a challenge. Change is something that all too often now we associate with complexity. It's not just about doing things differently or new, it's about taking on more. And with an already too long to-do list for many of us, we resist change as a result. I've started to see this resistance more and more over the last 5 years in my own organization. I have a team of trainers and teachers around the world that teach leaders and organizations like yours how to better anticipate and activate change. And all my trainers were starting to come back and tell me they were experiencing the exact same problem. And it was this: the very leaders that were bringing us in to teach their teams how to embrace change were the very people that were holding us back from doing it when we got there. It's like we were being given a box of crayons and told to draw a creative picture of the future and new ideas for change, and then only to color within very specific lines, which is ridiculous because you already know the picture that you're going to get. So I wanted to know, why is this happening? And I set out and I talked to over 10,000 people in different countries, cultures, companies, and here's what I learned. We're approaching change in all the wrong ways. The very things that we put in place to help us better change or innovate are often the very things that put a chokehold on it. Governance structures, policies, reports, procedures, all very important things. But they can't be the only thing that you do. And too often, they're an excuse not to do anything at all. Well, I wanted to change this. And so I worked with people to come up with a simpler approach to change. And I think too often with change, it's not about doing more, it's about doing less. It's starting by simplifying, by getting rid of or killing those things or rules that are holding us back to create the space for change that's very valuable. There's 3 techniques I think you can use that are very simple to create that space for change. The first is reversing assumptions. The second is asking killer questions. And the third is killing stupid rules. The first technique is reversing assumptions. This is a great technique to use if you're stuck in a rut or if you really want to disrupt a problem or process that's holding you back. I was working with HBO not too long ago, a great creative group, and they decided they wanted to shake up something that's mundane but holds them back from being more productive. And that was their weekly status meetings. So we looked at their meetings and we broke how they operate into all the assumptions that they had about those meetings. So here's what they said. The assumption they had was it's 1 hour a week, only managers can attend, and it had to be held in a conference room. We then took their assumptions and we reversed them. Now, a reverse is not the opposite, but the alternative to the assumption. They came up with lots of reversals, and what they actually selected has been transformative for them in terms of their meetings. Their meetings now are 39 minutes. And they try and beat that time every week. Managers can invite a +1. It can be an employee who now feels included, or they bring customers or clients or even competitors who give them new ideas. And they hold it in a secret location. No longer do people show up to the meetings not having read the agenda. They have to, or they won't know where the meeting's being held. So think about a problem or process that's holding you back. What assumptions do you have that are holding you back from creating new things associated with that? How would you reverse those assumptions? The second technique is asking killer questions. This is a great technique if you want to build your provocative inquiry skills, which we all know in the future are going to be very important. We have so much data these days. In the future, asking the right questions will become more valuable than finding the right answers. How good are you at doing it? Think about the last meeting that you were in. What types of questions did you or other people ask? Were they provocative or were they boring? I think often people ask questions like, who's got an idea about, or how should we improve? Terrible questions. I want you to be able to get people out of their brainstem and into their frontal cortex. Ask questions like this. Which suffers more breakdowns? Our classroom experience, our work process, or our people? Why? Or what question would you love to ask our students, parents, or administration, but are too scared or embarrassed to ask? And finally, you've just written a tell-all book about your organization. What secrets does it reveal? Questions like these really get people to wake up. They can take a meeting from boring to brilliant. So ask yourself this: what killer question would you love to ask? Why haven't you asked it? The third technique is Kill a Stupid Rule, and I think you'll really like this technique. Kill a Stupid Rule is all about breaking down barriers and challenging the status quo. All too often, we follow rules because they're there. That's how it's always been. We assume that's how things have to be done. But what if some rules have outlived their time? Not too long ago, I was doing a Kill a Stupid Rule session with a division of Novartis Pharmaceuticals, a very regulated industry like yours. And many of the people there were frustrated because they felt they couldn't change anything because of government regulations or industry mandates. So we forced them within 30 minutes to come up with any rule within their division that they would love to kill or change. And after a little warming up, and that 30 minutes was over, they were able to kill over 100 rules, identify things as complicated as processes or as simple as meetings and reports that just weren't necessary anymore. Think about how you might do Kill a Stupid Rule if you're a teacher with students in your classroom, and how they could give you new ideas to improve the experience and learn better. Or if you're a principal, ask your teachers, how can we make the curriculum better, or how we work at school? Kill a Stupid Rule is a great technique to stop feeling like you have handcuffs and move to a way to have guardrails instead. Ask yourself this: if you could kill or change any 2 rules to be more innovative or effective at work, what would they be, and why? Change doesn't have to be complicated. It can be achieved in very simple ways. And if you use these 3 techniques, reversing assumptions, asking killer questions, and killing stupid rules, you'll be on the right track to creating more space for change and innovation in your organization. Change is a choice, and it can begin right now, right here, with you. Thank you.
If we want to close the achievement gap for all students, we have to do 3 things. One is create better leaders. A second is to stop boring students to death with traditional schooling. And a third is to bring about change from the middle outward. So let's talk about each of those. The first one, which is we call change leader, you can use any label you want, but a change leader does basically 2 things. One is they help the group shape and reshape quality ideas. And the second one is they engage in a process where people develop capacity and ownership about those ideas. So there are only 2 things. One is the quality of the idea, and the other is the quality of the process. If you don't have both, you get nothing. So it's very important that the change leaders engage the group that way. If we think of examples, and we've been filming schools, so we know what this looks like in action, I want to go to Park Manor, which is a senior public school just west of Toronto. The principal's name happens to be James Bond. And yes, he does refer to himself as 007, but you don't have to be James Bond to be this good. He arrived at the school, Park Manor, and his staff was mainly young people, beginning teachers, rookies, let's say, who had a lot of, they were keen, but they also didn't have a lot of confidence. And so he said, we're going to build, focus on instruction. We're going to get better at it together. We're going to link into what students need to know. We're going to assess where they are. We're going to build on that. And he said, above all, I want people to feel free to take chances, to learn new things. And he said, I want to be comfortable in front of you saying, I don't know how to do some things. I want you to be comfortable in front of each other, and with students, the same thing. So let's create this climate and let's get going and doing that. And they did that. And they began to bring about the changes. A key thing for the change leader is that they have to participate as learners, that phrase, participate as learners with the rest of the staff in moving the school forward. A second thing is that they have to enable the staff to learn from each other. We call it, if you want to change the group, use the group to change the group. So that's what they did. They got great results, engagement. They used stickies, which were on the wall, of a picture of the students, all the students in the staff room. How are they doing in terms of literacy and math? What can we do to work with these? They worked in small groups. They did a combination of things. They got great results. Their writing, for example, grade 6 on the province average. They started with at 42% high proficiency, and right now they're at 83%. So this is big success. And now they're going into deeper innovation. You'll see in these examples there's a growing ascendancy of this role of the student as partner in learning, teachers partnering with each other, the principal part of that group. And so as they go forward now into the deeper innovations, they're using technology a lot more to accelerate the learning. So a very clear example of what this looks like, change leaders, and change leaders have to be that effective. The second factor is we need to attack boredom of traditional schooling. So when children go to kindergarten, after adjustment, they start to enjoy it, and they have a few years of enjoyment. But after that, there's a steep decline in the enthusiasm they have for schooling. You can see the graphs as they go all the way. By the time they get to grade 9, almost only a third of the students are still engaged. And that really is one of the principals we talked to said, well, the teachers actually are bored too, that they didn't know it until we began to change it. So if you think of traditional schooling, there's not much life in it, and that has to change. And a good example of this is secondary school. Central Peel Secondary School, which is a highly diverse, big district altogether, 240 schools. It's near the airport in Toronto. And the principal, whose name is Lawrence DeMeyer, came in and he said the first thing that I noticed was there's not much life in the place, that people didn't have much confidence, that the school had gone from 1,300 students to 950 over the previous years. And he said that something had to be done. And what he did was, he said, in his words, he said, I created a culture of yes. And he said, sounds like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing. I wanted people to start trying new things. I was going to help them. I was going to learn with them. And one of the symbolic things he did early was in an assembly with 900 students. He said, I want everyone to get out their personal devices and let's start playing with it. And so he got onto Twitter and said, how do you like school? What's your favorite subject? What should be improved around here? And the whole place kind of blew up, and you could probably you're thinking that this is a recipe for chaos. 900 kids with these devices legitimized to go do what they want. But interestingly, it didn't turn out that way at all. The students started to, and the teachers started to use these integrated with the teaching. Again, the student as partner in learning got very evident. And over a period of about 1.5 years, this developed successfully. And I talked to one teacher who said, I'm on my second career. I was in another career. I thought I would like teaching. And 2 years ago, I thought I should go for my third career because I didn't want to come to school. Nothing was much happening. She said, now, 2 years later, the energy is just fantastic of the students, of my other teachers, and that kind of brought the whole place to life. So a very good example now of we have change leader in both principals. And now in the second case, high school, we have a really an exciting, engaged group that are, the numbers are going up in the school again. Graduation rate, which was going down, is now reversed. So really a great place to be. So that's the second factor. The third one is if you want to change a system, you have to go from the middle out. By the middle, I mean school districts. So if we think of the state level as one level, we think of the districts as a second level, and the third, the schools and the communities. We know that top-down change doesn't work because people, it's too complex. They won't, you can't run it from the center, but we also know that one school at a time is too piecemeal. So where's the glue? Where's the coherence? And we're finding it that if we can get districts and schools to learn from each other, if that's the strategy, it actually accelerates the system as a whole. And a good example of this is California, where we're working. If you want complexity, go to California. 1,009 districts, well over 10,000 schools, really lots of layers of complexity. They haven't been doing well the last 30 years, so not a lot of excitement or enthusiasm. And now we and others are using this leadership through the district level. One group of 10 districts, we're advising the leadership of that consortium to do the things that we're talking about, implement changes, new roles for teachers and principals as school leaders. So another group we're running ourselves, 3 districts and doing this. And the work that they're doing is they're learning from each other. Who knows how to, for example, do the best with English language learners because there are huge numbers of immigrants in California. How do we teach math more effectively? So they're kind of drawing on the ideas of the group and doing that on purpose. 3 things happen in this case. One is the district gets better because now they're drawing on wider resources internally to their district. Secondly, as districts start to form a bond, 2, 3, 5, whatever the number are, and they start to be committed to helping each other. And the third thing, and this is interesting as well, is they become better partners upward to the state. That the state being the accountability framework, the Department of Education. They become better partners because they have ideas. They become sometimes pushy, and that's a good thing. If you have state leadership, as we have in California now, that wants to take advantage of that, that partnership can be 2 ways. And then you start to see that movement. California, the educators, hordes of them, have never been so excited as they are now. I think it's still a bit early to call it a success. They've been just doing it for a year, a little more than a year. But we have some optimism because we've used the same strategy in Ontario. Somewhat smaller, but large enough, 5,000 schools, 2 million students. We started 10 years ago, this very strategy, schools learning from each other, districts learning from each other, partnership between the state and the schools. And high school graduation, for example, has gone from 68% to 84%. This is fantastic, 900 schools. That the literacy has really kind of shot upward for the 4,000 elementary schools. The gap has been closed significantly for English language learners, special education, schools in poverty. These 3 factors, good change leadership, reversing the boredom of students into exciting learning with each other and with teachers, and starting in the middle outward to change the system as a whole, they are producing the results. Anybody can get and be engaged in this. Anybody can do this if they team up and do it. This is really exciting because it works.
Some really informative talks, and we are now joined live by Lisa Bodell. She's down in Houston. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's terrific to have you here. We appreciate your time. And also, we're going to move it out to Toronto. We have Michael Fullen standing by up in Toronto. Michael, hello.
Hi, I'm back. Good to be with you. It's great. I love the 2 talks. So let's, especially the first one, Lisa. Thank you.
Terrific. All right, we have everyone on board. Now, Lisa gave us 3 tips for how to innovate in any workplace. Michael told us 3 priorities for improving education systems. And I had some burning questions of my own that I wanted to ask before we jumped into some of the audience questions, which are coming in at a fast and furious pace. One thing I want to do first, just before we jump into the questions, we know some of the viewers out there may be experiencing a little bit of a delay in the audio. Just go ahead, refresh your page, and that should put you right back on track. All right, so let's jump into these questions here. And Lisa, I want to talk a little bit about this because we know that one of the points in your talk was that people should kill stupid rules in their organizations, the rules that get in the way of innovation and teamwork. And you took the opportunity to ask your own 13-year-old son one of your killer questions about improving schools. So my question is, what did you ask and how did he respond?
Well, that's a great question because I like to kind of practice what I preach. So I was having one of those moments, as many people here on the event, the webcast here can understand. As a parent of 2 children, I spent a lot of time supporting him on homework, and he and I were both frustrated one night with a project he had, and he was blocking his learning, and I finally just looked at him and said, "Okay, Jack, let's stop." And I said, if you could, if school didn't exist, how would you learn? And I was just kind of asking as rhetorically, like, well, of course you got to go to school. And he said, I can think of a lot of ways I could play games, and I don't just mean video games, Mom. You can learn strategy, you can collaborate together. I would watch YouTube videos, and I would figure out science experiments. I would go out and I would talk to other people. It was very interesting how he was talking about, we use the word modalities, learning modalities. He was saying in his own kid language how he would learn in a more experiential way. And I know we've talked a lot about not boring students in class, as Michael said so well, that I think what he was trying to say is, let's shake it up a little bit. He said, if I was the teacher, and that was really interesting. If I was the teacher, and he likes his teacher very much, he said, I would just love to be able to, sometimes maybe I'll teach my friends and they'll teach me. Maybe we could go out on a field trip. Maybe we could bring in our own experiments. And I just thought that was really interesting, of spending the time listening to the students, of course, and saying, if you could teach, or if you had to learn in a new way, what would it be like? I learned a lot from asking that question of him.
And that's certainly one of the ways to innovate, to turn to the students. We keep building all these curriculums without taking into account the most important people as part of that.
That's right.
And Michael, I know I really liked what you said about stop boring students. It really resonated a lot. So what are the best ways to engage students without disrupting the entire curriculum?
Well, the first thing I think is to realize that teaching has to change more than the curriculum, and the curriculum too, but the hardest part and the most alpha part will be teaching. And so a teacher has to face that. And then they have to take a risk. I don't think it's a big risk. Psychologically, it's big. But when you do it, it's not so bad. So it would be things like thinking about, are there other teachers in my school? Now I'm talking as a teacher. Are there other teachers in my school that are really doing well with students? And then finding out what they're doing. A very big one that we use, that Lisa mentioned, we ask students, how would you like to learn differently? That is the teacher asking students, and they don't come up with threatening comments. They come up with tons of ideas about how to do that, and that you unleashed a lot of that energy. So I think taking a risk to do some of this on a small scale, see how it works, and build on it is another way of doing that. There's also tons of resources. The teaching channel that is out there has hundreds of short videos, 3, 5, 7 minutes, showing what this looks like in practice. There's no excuse not to get started. Probably a good idea, don't start it just by yourself with your students, but also with other teachers.
Okay. And Lisa, can you give us 2 more examples of stupid rules that have been killed? Maybe one from business and then one from the public sector?
Happily. I have so many. I'll tell you, everyone really loves kill a stupid rule, because even in our personal lives, it works, right? We build up all these things and we don't revisit them again and again. It's nice to kind of have a spring cleaning. Let's see, 2 good rules. I'll give you a McGraw-Hill one. We work a lot with them in all different parts of their company. And this was one within McGraw-Hill Education. It was interesting. I said, if you could get rid of anything, what would it be? And one person stood up in the room. It was a group of about 100 people. And he said, I would love to get rid of something that consumes all of our time, and that is our monthly operating report. And you would have thought that this guy was a rock star, because everyone stood up and started clapping, giving him a standing ovation. They have this monthly operating report that they have to turn in. And the guy said, I fill out my monthly operating report every month. And I'll tell you, the past 3 months, I have put it in a drawer and waited for somebody to ask me for it. And nobody has. So, of course, the lead person in the room was the person who came up with the monthly operating report. And this person said, even though I came up with it, I thought it was helpful. I didn't realize it wasn't. I will pilot getting rid of this report, because everyone has a hard time letting go of things. And if no one misses it in 3 more months, we'll kill it. And no one missed it, so they killed it. So that people were ecstatic over something so simple. A public sector example was there was a community economic development group in a small town. And they decided that they would get together. They only had one full-time employee dedicated to this effort, and the rest was a volunteer board. And they said, you know, we have limited resources. What are the things that are just standing in our way from being more successful and attracting more economic diversity to our town? And they realized that they had a lot of really great separate groups working, but there was no communication or coordination for them to learn from each other and therefore share resources and frankly save money or put it in better places. They had these monthly meetings where each group got together individually, and then they funneled up their meeting reports to the top level. So the top level thought everything was going really well, but none of these people talked to each other. So they changed it. Rather than killing something, they killed the old way of doing their meetings, and now they had a representative from each of these different divisions get together every other month and share what they were doing. And they actually reduced their costs by 20% and put that money into light infrastructure improvements in the community. So that was they killed an old way and changed it to something better.